Good morning. It is Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony here, Sunday morning, April 6th, to go over the weekly astrology heading into next week, the weekend of the 12th and 13th, I suppose it is. And, wow, this energy is crazy right now if you haven't been paying attention. So, we're about to come out of this dual retrograde of Mercury and Venus, starting with tomorrow, Monday, April 7th, Mercury turns direct in Pisces. Venus will follow suit on Saturday, the 12th, going direct in Pisces, and that'll coincide 40 minutes after the full moon in Libra, and Venus is a ruler of Libra. So we've been in this eclipse period, this dual retrograde period with Venus and Mercury preparing us on a societal level for the movement of both Neptune and Saturn into Aries, crossing the threshold from the end of the zodiac to the beginning. We already have Neptune in Aries right now, and it'll back to the 29th degree in the fall for about 3 months, and then go back into Aries. And Saturn's not going to hit Aries until May, but right now we have this interesting period where Neptune is out of Pisces, and Saturn is still in Pisces. And Saturn has had a way the last couple of years, since early, I think February, March 2023 was when Saturn entered Pisces. It's had a way of correcting the deceptions of Neptune in Pisces. And Neptune has been in Pisces since, again, 2011 was its first entrance permanently in February of 2012. Immediately following that, within months of that movement of Neptune into Pisces in 2012, we had the Smith-Mundt Modernization Act. So this goes back to a 1948 Smith-Mundt Act, which essentially protected Americans from being propagandized. Okay, but it was a system or a method in which we could propagandize other countries toward American ideals. In 2012, it was modernized so that that protection of American citizens against propaganda was lifted. Okay, and this happened with Neptune and Pisces. Lo and behold, right? Neptune and Pisces in general can be a very deceptive period, and it has been. That is literally when the media started to really create division. Okay, that's what really started to happen then. And what's interesting now is with Neptune entering Aries briefly here until October, and Saturn alone in Pisces now correcting Saturn's deceptions, and it's going to hit the North Node in Pisces here later this month. I mean, there's going to be a lot of corrective action, let's put it that way. So what we're seeing right now with this, these protests, which are not organic, let's face it, let's be honest, let's be objective. They're, using astrology as our objective lens. These are not organic protests, okay? And they're going to fall flat in their faces. I mean, they started with Mercury and Venus in retrograde while Mars is out of bounds, and Mars is in its detriment, the opposite sign that it's exalted, and that rules all the Aries planets. So this movement of planets from Pisces to Aries that we've been talking about the last few weeks, and so that's not very strong. And then you have Jupiter, the traditional ruler of Pisces, so it's ruling all the Pisces planets like Saturn right now, like Venus in Mercury retrograde right now, right before they go direct, and the North Node. And Jupiter is in its fall sign, means the opposite of what the sign that it rules, Sagittarius, so it's in Gemini right now. So the planetary configurations right now for anything that's igniting or starting has sort of inevitable failure assigned or associated with it. And again, that comes from an objective observer on top of a hill like I am right now, looking down at things and just seeing how they are. I don't know how this is going to unfold completely, but it's not going to be good for anyone that's toxically loyal to a certain side, let's put it that way. Stockholm Syndrome is real. This weekly one is a little bit of a rant, but just from a perspective of objective astrology, I have no other way of seeing this. Anyway, I'll talk all about this on Friday, April 11th. I will be the speaker at the San Diego Astrological Society, and I'll be talking about, most specifically, Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries from Pisces, which is what we're warming up for right now with the whole Venus and Mercury retrograde crossing over that threshold, and what that's going to mean as a major shift in society. Okay, what we're seeing right now, generally speaking, is the last-ditch desperate efforts of the old guard trying to capture itself and keep itself on its pedestal. That's really what we're seeing. Because generally speaking, we're breaking free from this like corporatocracy, right? This bureaucracy, this top-down ownership of individual liberty. It's breaking down right now as we speak, which is a good thing. We're going to be on our own in a sense, but that's a good thing. That's where we're at. We've matured spiritually to that point. This is that whole crossing the threshold, the end of Pisces, beginning of Aries. This is the end of the zodiac, beginning of the zodiac, right? So we have to let things crumble, break down that bureaucracy, break down that waste and everything. So we're energetically where we're supposed to be right now, which is interesting. And it's just more interesting that there's plenty of minions willing to defend what is collapsing. It dumbfounds me. And it's nothing to do with politics. It has to do with being human and just taking a step back and seeing what is actually happening. Okay? Anyway, so those are the big moves this week. I mean, Venus is going to join Saturn tomorrow as Mercury turns direct on Monday. Then it will sextile Uranus, because we have this sextile between Saturn and Uranus right now, which again is this structured change. We're changing for good, for permanent, in a permanent way. It's going to be gradual, but these breakdowns have to happen. And anyway, so that Venus will be pretty much in the vicinity of Saturn when it turns direct on Saturday, and in the vicinity of a sextile to Uranus when it turns direct as well. So really we have this cluster of Venus and Mercury, Saturn, and the North Node in Pisces that are all coming together this week as Venus and Mercury both start to turn direct, and as Saturn continues on to the North Node, that it will conjunct later this month, and then it'll enter Aries in May. Okay, so we are at this final point, like literally the end of Pisces, these planets. So there is a desperation mode going on from the collective elite, if you want to call it that, where they're really trying to stop humanity from advancing in many ways, because with the previous Saturn-Neptune cycle that started in 1989 in Capricorn, which is exactly what I'm going to talk about on Friday at the San Diego Astrological Society meeting, is, we're coming to the end of this Saturn-Neptune cycle, and it has been all about a burgeoning global bureaucracy. Okay, this essentially what fascism actually is, which is a blend of business, corporations, and government. Okay, which is ironic because they point the finger at any individual that tries to insert themselves in that system and change that system as a fascist. Yet it is fascism that's been ruling us for 35 plus years, right? Since 1989. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 89 was the end of the previous Saturn-Neptune cycle and the beginning of this current one, which was replaced by this corporatocracy, or whatever you want to call it. And that is breaking down now. So essentially the Berlin Wall is falling again over the coming months, from now until early 2026. It's a similar kind of energy because the Saturn-Neptune cycle is ending again. Okay? And with Saturn-Neptune entering Aries, it's a whole new dawn for humanity, because we're going to be coming from a more sovereign place. This term sovereign harmony that I've been using came to me in 2010 during a Mercury retrograde. I was driving home from getting groceries, and I was like, oh, that's it. I didn't even know what it meant. I had to have it. I went to GoDaddy.com, grabbed the URL, and then it took a year and a half before I even put up a website with Sovereign Harmony. I had been operating under my Astro Chris doing astrology at that point, and I transitioned everything over to Sovereign Harmony because I knew it was going to be a concept that was going to mean something. Now I have Mercury in Aries, my ruling planet, so I tend to be ahead of a lot of people in my ideas. It didn't make sense that back then. Right now, literally in the mid-2020s, Sovereign Harmony makes a lot of sense. Because it's this concept of coming into our individual sovereignty and creating harmony from that by first internally creating harmony within ourselves, which reflects in the outer world. And we can't have that with a corporate bureaucracy on top of us. Okay, so we are in this transition now, and literally the page is turning as we speak. It makes a lot of sense that this past weekend has been these Soros-funded riots and whatnot, and these protests or whatever is going on, and these burning of Tesla vehicles. 3 years ago, Elon Musk was the hero of the quote-unquote left, which doesn't exist anymore, in my opinion. The political thing I don't believe in. It's just top-down. There's no left-right, in my opinion. And the top took over the left, the perceived left, back in 2020, when Pluto and Saturn came together in early 2020, just before the lockdowns happened, right? That was the re-emphasis of the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Capricorn from 1989. When Saturn returned to Capricorn for the first time since 1989, in 2020, it joined Pluto. So it joined Saturn in 1989, joined Pluto in 2020, and it reinforced this essential, idea of lockdown and keeping humanity down. We're going to talk all about this on Friday. So if you are in the San Diego area, please do join. Again, this is all about being an observer from the hill, using astrology as our tool. If you're too loyal to a certain side, you think the side still exists, you might get triggered, but that's okay. Maybe you need that. But I'm going to talk about things objectively as we are, where we're at, and exactly why we're seeing what we're seeing now. Anyway, a little bit different of a talk this time. It's a really nice day today. No clouds. I don't know if you can see the ocean out there. It's hard to see, but on the very edge, you can see the ocean. And anyway, so thanks for joining me this week. We'll see you next week. Until then, take it all in and take care.